It is 12:34. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media, and today we're going to be reflecting on Women's Day and the lessons that can be learned from the women of 1956. And Women's Day was celebrated on Monday, the 9th of August. And on the 9th of August, 1956, over 20,000 women marched to the Union Buildings in Pretoria to present a petition against the proposed amendments to the Urban Areas Act. They protested against the unjust past laws enforced on women in South Africa. And we celebrate and honor these women every 9th August of every year. And also, Women's August has become known as Women's Month in South Africa. Joining me right now is journalist, author, and activist Zubeida Jaffer to help us reflect on Women's Month and the lessons. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and shukran for joining me. Assalamu alaikum, Zubeida. All right, we're going to try and re-establish connection with Zubeida over there. We are talking about Women's Day, or rather reflecting on Women's Day and the lessons that can be learned from the women of 1956. And what are some of the lessons that you have learned from the women of 1956? What can you share with us? And looking back and comparing the situation now, what have you learned? I know many of us were not there back then. It's been a long time, but obviously we've learned about their struggles during the course of history. And these women have become role models, people that we look up to in this day and age. And that's what we're doing today. We're reflecting on Women's Day and the lessons that we can learn from those women. Share your comments with us on WhatsApp, 061 766 0355. Alternatively, you can leave your comments or questions in the comment section. We are live on Facebook. Alternatively, you can don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. Now, for me, one thing that stood out, I think, for the rest of the world is when they say, you strike a woman, you strike a rock. That was because of the women that decided to gather together and to march to the Union Buildings. And, you know, they were the rocks back then. And they were strong, they were resilient, they were persevering, and they took matters into their own hands. And I think women are still continuing to do that even to this day and age. Women are still taking matters into their own hands, although it is quite challenging at the moment. It is quite difficult for the women because women are being marginalized, and women are put on a pedestal. Women are told what to do and what not to do. There's this facade that there's equality amongst women and men, especially in terms of opportunities, but we all know that that is not true, that is not correct. And 65 years later, what we call as a freedom in South Africa, do we still have that freedom as women in South Africa? You know, we have the advent of gender-based violence and gender inequality, and gender-based violence is one of the biggest problems that we are currently facing as a country. And, you know, it has become very terrifying to be a woman in South Africa because you have to constantly look over your shoulders. You have to constantly look left and right when you're driving. You know, I mean, obviously that is standard, but you just never know who might lurk on the sides or who might lurk behind you, all because, you know, you are a woman and you are deemed as vulnerable. And unfortunately, that is the state that we are currently facing. And we need to change. A lot needs to be done about this issue that we are currently facing in South Africa. And November is going to come again, and we're going to have the 16 days of activism against no violence against women and children. And we're going to find ourselves in square one once the 16 days of activism is over, and we're going to just keep on having that problem until we do something. We can't just talk about it. Action needs to be taken. Okay, I think we do have Zubeida on the line. Assalamu alaikum, Zubeida.
Alaikum salam, Mariam. Yes, I can hear you now.
Alhamdulillah, shukran, and welcome to the show. And now, quickly, what does Women's Day mean to you? You know, being a woman in South Africa, a woman of color, what does a Women's Day mean to you?
It means that we have an opportunity to reflect on how far we've come or how far we have not come. So it's an opportunity to assess
Hmm.
the positives and the negatives.
Hmm. 65 years later, women in South Africa are still marginalized and fighting for their rights. And what problems and challenges are women facing right now?
We are living through very difficult times, Mariam,
Mm.
and hard times. And as you said earlier, I heard you say that we need to decide what we're going to do and how we're going to move. Do I ever want to say that it is not accurate that we think that nothing is being done. I think there's been huge efforts over a very, very long time. And even the fact that you are there on a radio and TV program, that speaks to the progress that we've made. 40 years ago, when I was a young journalist, that would never have been possible. So we have, we've got to list our positives, and then we've got to look very, very closely at our challenges and see how we can move forward, inch by inch.
Hmm. Yeah, no, of course, we have come a long way and we have achieved so much in that time. But I spoke on gender-based violence, saying that not much is being done when it comes to gender-based violence. But while we're on that topic, what do you think about it and how can we better tackle the gender-based violence issue that we face as a country?
We have to look in every one of our communities and be sure to be aware. We need to have groups of people who are aware of who is being affected, and to campaign on the ground and to make people aware wherever they are. So it's very basic things that we have to do. Besides all the state organs having to function properly, and that's not always happening. But we also have the capacity to identify those in our community who are able to be in touch. For example, in Weinberg, where we've lived over 60 years, I can definitely say that I am in touch with the people in my street. We're about 20 families, and I've got some idea that, I think I would get to know if they are being beaten, or there have been people who've spoken to me in the neighborhood, and I think that we have to have in each street somebody that stands up that women can go to.
Hmm. Well, let me just quickly share my situation here. We have a neighbor who was a victim of domestic violence, and one day she came to us to ask for assistance, and we were threatened by her husband. I mean, he brought out all the weapons and stuff, to threaten us to, stay out of their issues. So, how do you help in that situation where you are then threatened and you try to help, and even if you phone the police, you are still meddling in other people's businesses, and therefore you might be a victim yourself.
It is a very, very difficult situation. I would not suggest that you meddle directly. I would say that you need to know who the people are that you can call. There's Lifeline, there's various other groups that you can call, and let them deal with it professionally if you know that you are too close to the matter, because yes, there is a real risk, and the men who behave in this kind of way are not always very rational. And I think from a Islamic point of view, even from Christian point of view, there's got to be in our religious organizations, there's got to be, a firm talking to, to the males who do this. I don't get a sense. There's some mosques that are, for example, talking out quite strongly against this, but not generally. If you listen to the khutbahs on the radio, and there's very seldom somebody who speaks directly to the men to say that this is not on. They may say it, but not with the kind of passion that they need to. So that can also be done much, much more, assertively, so that you are not in danger yourself.
Hmm. Now, this year has been dubbed as the year of Charlotte Maxeke, and you have written a book about her. So, what are some lessons that we can learn from her and the women of that generation?
Well, I am of the view that their challenges were greater, or just as great maybe as ours. We've got different challenges, but just remember that a century ago they were faced with the reality that after the Anglo-Boer War, which was the white and white violence that was experienced, and when they reached a settlement, the white communities, they then decided to set about excluding everybody else. So 1910 came, Act of Union, which excluded all of us politically, and then 1913 came, which was the wholesale theft of land, which then we were all subjected to, and then the pass laws and various other so many laws came that really derailed us, and probably one of the most damaging laws was the Population Registration Act and the law that the Group Areas Act, because today we still struggle with that we are separated into little boxes and very difficult to get out of. So Charlotte and her generation could have just curled up and given up under those conditions, but they didn't. They continue to educate, they continue to build schools, they continue to reach out, to move society with very little resources, compared to what we have access to today. So I think what we can learn from them is that countries go through difficulties. We're going through a really great difficulty at the moment with COVID and the unrest and unemployment and women violence, so many
Mhm.
different things at the same time. And the question we have to ask ourselves, will we just, do everything to hate ourselves and say how bad we are? Or will we reflect and look at the many achievements and the positive things that we are doing, and grow those positive elements in our society. We've got no choice,
Mhm.
unless we all want to go down the drain together. I don't think it's a choice. And that's what we learned from Charlotte Maxeke and her generation, that they continued working and pushing back the bad, over a period of time. And we are the beneficiaries of those, of greater possibilities because of what they did.
Yes. Now,
Yeah.
what did the pandemic and unrest teach us about the role that women play in improving our society?
Well, fortunately, with the unrest, I would say from what I saw, the women were not involved on a scale that the men were.
Mm-hmm.
They were involved, but not on the scale, and they weren't taking a great leadership role. It was a sort of a male aggressive activity that we witnessed. And then with COVID, of course, everybody's been affected, and it's been amazing to see how communities have rallied, how women and men actually have made food and served people, tried in this difficult condition to help families. So it's again, as I said, we don't know why Allah Ta'ala has sent us such a big challenge all in one go. But it is not for us to ask or to yeah to we can't we have to accept that this is happening, and only question we have to ask is what are we going to do. And there are many women, I think, that have behaved admirably in stepping up to help others in their community during the COVID period.
Definitely. South Africa has one of the highest female representatives in parliament compared to other countries in the world. Why does this not reflect the rest of our society?
Well, that again, also, Mariam, I don't know if that's a true statement, because if you really
Mhm.
look at what's happening, I say just in the media alone, there's never been so many women, present in media operations ever, that we can go back in history, and there's never ever been so many women. There's never ever been so many women. At the universities. In fact, the numbers are higher for women than men at the moment. And so we have, if we look at different sectors, we can see that the women are coming through. They're coming through in all sorts of ways. And it's so difficult because our problems are so huge that we can't always see what gains we've made, but we've made enormous gains. But at the moment, there's a considerable mess. It's a considerable mess, and so we have to hold each other's hands, keep together, and push back against those who want to destroy everything that we have achieved so far, and bring peace and stability to our country, because that's really important. And I think the young people who started the Build South Africa movement from Soweto, which grew so amazingly at the time of unrest, they have done us a huge favor, because we actually, there was a comparison we could make to those who were behaving in an awful way, and who were looting and burning and attacking people, and killing people. There was that lot on the one hand, and then there was these other South Africans, even in wheelchairs and all over the show, going out there and cleaning up. And at the mosques in Durban, I even saw that there were white, black, every color of persons were able to receive bread and milk at some of the mosques, and this was incredibly admirable. So we have something great as a people. The question is whether we're just going to fold our hands and say we are the worst people on earth, or whether we're going to say, look, we are have to go through this rather terrible time in order to come through it at the other end. And it's in our hands the way we're going to come through this in the end. Absolutely up to us.
Yeah, I think the fact that people came together to protect their streets, their businesses, their shopping centers, etc., that in itself speaks that we are capable of working together and creating the beautiful nation that we so want to have. Now, quickly, where do we start? In I know we always like to say that we have a long way to go, but we have achieved so much already. And now to leave another legacy behind for the next generation, where do we start?
uh, it's up to young people to gather together, and for you in the media to also to have discussions about what are some of the things that can be done, and start small. I mean, I remember, and I think if I with the research with the Charlotte book, it wasn't big things that people did. It was small things that people did that everybody could do, that became big, that became substantial, And so, even if you can just help your neighbor, even if you can just make sure that your family is, there's no violence in your family, even if you can just find a kind word every day for the people that you see and inspire hope, then you're already doing something. And then, of course, the next step would be to say, are you prepared to help and join an organization or be a volunteer somewhere to help, either give food or help women who are in distress. There are lots of organizations that one can join, and just even if you just give sandwiches or you just talk, I found that now during COVID, that what women have said to me over and over, as if I call them, then they say that just talking, just talking and hearing from somebody, it makes all the difference, makes all the difference, because everybody's sitting with pain and difficulty. It's affecting everybody. It's not you sitting there, I'm sitting there. It's all of us who are having difficulty in coping with this crazy situation. And so we need to be talking to others. And when we talk to others, we're not there to send the worst possible, messages. We are there to support and to help and to encourage and to inspire hope, all the time. And I think that's probably what I also gleaned from Charlotte and what she was doing all the time and what we require to do all the time.
All right. So now, what is your message to the women and girls in South Africa for Women's Month?
I would say that, they should be entirely who they are, not try to be someone else, be true to themselves. They should, and they should not look, same as I'm saying for the broader situation. They too, each one of us, we shouldn't look at, all our blemishes and all our, frailties. We can make a list and we can see, usually the list of our beauties is longer than the list of our problems. And so, because God has given all of us talents and all of us abilities, and it's for us to say thank you every day, thank you every day, and be grateful, and then to say, okay, how do I become slowly the best version of myself? That's all that I can hope for everybody, that they can love themselves and not, dislike themselves, because we are in a very difficult period.
Indeed, I mean, and shukran so much for your time, for taking the time to chat to us as well, and for sharing, or rather to help us reflect on Women's Day and the lessons. And good luck with your future endeavors. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Mariam. Salam. Take care.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Zubeida Jaffer, author, journalist, and activist, taking us through these reflections and lessons that can be learned from the women of 1956, as well as Charlotte Maxeke, and the lessons that we can learn from her, because this year has been dubbed as the year of Charlotte. It is 12:59. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media, and it's time for me to love and leave you. I will be back next week, Tuesday, from 11 to 1 p.m. right here on Salam Media. And you can keep in touch with us in the meantime by sending us your comments, questions, queries, or suggestions to our WhatsApp line 0617660355. And also follow us on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And my advice to you on in this Women's Month is to don't forget self-care. You know, take care of yourself, look after yourself, and take a moment for yourself. And you may be doing a lot of things, you may be juggling a lot of roles, but do not neglect yourself while you do all of that, even if it means taking out just 10 minutes, 5 minutes out of your daily routine to just refocus, recenter, and reflect on what was and what will be. We are in the new Islamic the year 1443, and this is the second day. So do that for yourself and going forward as well. From myself and the rest of the Salam Media team, have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.